Hello, folks. Welcome back to another, what is this, edition or episode of this podcast, which is The Art of Being. And we use the ACT Matrix to help us out with it. I'm Kevin Polk, and my co-host is...
I am Phil Tenalia.
And we're here. You've probably seen the title by now. It's something like A Matrix, Nihilism, and the Intellectual Dark Web.
Yes.
That intrigued you enough to click on this and start watching this.
And here you are.
And I called it A Matrix because in this circumstance, in this context, saying the Matrix seemed a little bit presumptuous.
Yeah, bit pretentious. We're not going to go there.
Pretentious. I didn't want to be pretentious on purpose, so it's A Matrix.
Yes.
But in this case, the Matrix is this thing of diagramming a human being.
Shall I bring up the prop?
Go ahead and bring it up.
Let's bring it up. So this is A Matrix.
Up at the top is your senses. Your senses. A human being's senses. And that's taste, hearing, touch, smell, all that good stuff coming in. And then comes your mind, which you can talk. It's that thing that talks to you.
all the time.
All the time.
Whether you want it to or not.
And anybody that's past a few years old, they've got these words showing up in their mind. They're the thoughts and stuff. So that's your mind. It also has feelings and urges down there. Toward is stuff that you do to move toward stuff that you would like, that sort of ends up with you feeling some satisfaction, like moving towards someone who's important to you. And the away side is about the stuff that we humans do to reduce unwanted feelings. So, like, I'm really, really hungry. I'm going to go get something to eat. Yes. That's an away move.
Yep. or I've got a headache. I'm going to take some aspirin.
I'm going to go take some aspirin. Exactly. These are away moves. They are not bad or good or anything. They're just what we do. And, it gets at sort of the concept of motivation. What motivated you to do the action? So hunger, I'm motivated to go get something to eat. Now somebody might say, well, that also keeps you alive, so that's over on the toward side.
Yep.
So, okay, fine. But it's mostly away, because I don't like being hungry. But I'll get you a little bit toward. All kinds of stuff like that. So we look at humans from that point of view. Okay?
Yep.
And so where does nihilism come in? That's A Matrix. There's the Matrix.
Yep.
We forgot to put noticing in.
Yeah. Here, let's put that in the middle. Hold on.
On the Matrix, Phil's, and by the way, Phil's holding up the Matrix while I go through in words for the people who are listening on their car radios and stuff. Right smack dab in the middle.
I just added noticing.
Where the two lines cross is noticing. And that is the ability of humans to take a perspective on something, a little bit distance, and look back upon yourself. So you can notice yourself having sensory experience. You can notice yourself, your mind jabbering along. You can notice yourself doing toward stuff, and you can notice yourself doing away stuff. Basic thing. That's the basic matrix. We haven't added the stuff that goes in the quadrants yet, but we'll add that later.
Sure.
But this ability to notice, and it's called the observer self.
Yes.
Nice way of saying it. You're not really observing yourself.
No.
The little mental trick that we all have. We do that. And so here comes nihilism. And people are like, oh, I think maybe I've heard of nihilism. What is that?
Maybe why you showed up today to find out what it is.
What is nihilism? Well, it's most famous for being written about by Nietzsche, the philosopher Nietzsche. And the nihilistic point of view is that there's no rules. When it comes to humans governing themselves, humans managing themselves, so there's no religion, there's no legitimate, systems of government.
Right.
Everything's made up. Uh, and so at the end of it, you come up with no rules for living. That's truly the end point of nihilism. No rules. Uh, because, and it's accurate, folks, we're not denying the accuracy of this, of that the human mind makes it all up. That's what it's based on, is that it's the mind, the lower part of the matrix down there.
Down here.
The
Down here.
mind has made all this stuff up.
Right.
Well, you can't argue that. That's true.
We're gonna agree with that.
That's true. It has. It's made it all up. And some of the stuff it makes up works pretty good, and some of the stuff it makes up, not so well. And obviously, we've tried many different experiments over the course of human history of trying stuff that has been made up and seeing if it works. And then it doesn't. And so, back to Nietzsche. A lot of people say, oh, Nietzsche was a nihilist. No, 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 no. Nietzsche wasn't a nihilist.
Nope.
He was warning people. He was warning humanity of the dangers, or actually the coming nihilism. He was just bright. He was pretentious.
He was, yes.
Nihilism is coming.
It's coming.
You know, I want to be dead before it really, really gets here, but let me tell you, it's going to dang near kill off the human race.
Yeah, that was his concern.
That was his concern. And then there would be a few survivors who could then look back, that's that observer self thing, and go, whoa, that nihilism was a bad idea.
Yeah. Shouldn't have went that way.
And then we'll make a human race here on the earth that's survivable. But he didn't think the way things were going. And what? He was writing back in 1920 something?
1880s, 1890s, back in there, even,
I think.
Even earlier, right? But I think he lived until
around in that period.
Yeah.
For some reason, one of the things I saw had a 1900s date on it, but I don't know. May have been a later publication date of something he had written before. Nevertheless, here's the thing of it, folks. So far, we humans, and especially in 2019, we are proving him right. We were saying, hey, good old Nietzsche, boy, did you have it right?
Yeah.
And so why do you say that? Well, the religious things are really crumbling for the most part. You look at church attendance and this and that and the other.
Down. Right.
And obviously, like the control of the Catholic Church. It usually be back into, before 1950 especially.
Right.
I mean, if the priest said something, it was right.
Yeah, you're done.
The story, the power of the church, and all that. And those became at least some people's rules for living. And so that's what he was talking about. When Nietzsche said, no, that's going to break down. Well, then you say, well, we're still okay because we have governments. And they will set rules for living. Guess what, folks? Those are breaking down.
Yeah.
Take a look at our current situation in Washington. It doesn't seem to be getting shored up.
No, and things just aren't getting done.
It's getting more and more chaotic. The rules are not being followed. Even amongst the Congress who writes the rules, they're not following them.
Well, they're even saying it's okay to not even follow them.
Exactly. I mean, it's like, just looking at it objectively, folks, that's not going too well. And whatever political persuasion you want to look at it from. And then around the world, you see more and more of that. And basically people saying we just make our own rules. And now we get back to good old Nietzsche again. And that's the problem with nihilism is the end point is it's every person for themselves.
Right.
We'll all make up our own rules for living.
Yes. I'll get mine, you get yours.
Right. And
we'll see how that works out.
Right. Well, And in a lot of people's minds in that kind of environment, uh, since big muscles aren't, and with clubs and stuff aren't the biggie, it's assault weapons are the big thing for having power. Well, if it's every person for themselves, I better have weapons, uh, very
Oh yeah.
powerful, good weapons, so I can survive this nihilistic endpoint. Uh, and the problem is if only those people with that nihilistic view survive, well, how are they going to come up with a different view?
Right.
Now, Nietzsche was just predicting, so he has no idea what's going to emerge of the other side of nihilism. And so that's what it's headed for, and you will see it. And this is the reason why I talk about why philosophy is important. Uh, Knowing the ground that the ground that you're standing on, that is the philosophical argument grounds that you're standing upon, is important. Because if you're not standing on any grounds, you're a nihilist. and and nihilism is dangerous. It's just flat dangerous. And if you don't think it's dangerous, go take a look at the writings of the El Paso shooter.
Oh yeah.
Not too
Yeah.
long
Chance to
ago.
read that.
You
Very
will see
soon.
nihilism.
Yep.
You will absolutely see nihilism that he wrote. And then he went and killed all those poor people in that Walmart in El Paso. Well, he was spouting off nihilistic stuff that he had heard. But let's just say the internet.
Yeah. Heard, read, listened to.
Had to listen to all that nihilistic stuff that he had heard on the internet. And I am not saying everybody does this, but there are a few people that will really take that nihilistic stuff to heart and end up setting their own rules, doing their own thing, killing a bunch of people.
Yeah.
And you go watch. Another thing I showed to Phil was a nihilist on death row in Texas. He's dead now. He was on death row. That shot two people. But if you listen to him and look at his writings and stuff, he was a true nihilist.
That would be Douglas Feldman, by the way, folks.
Feldman. Look it up on YouTube. It's very thrilling. Now, Werner Herzog.
Werner Herzog. Yes.
German documentarian did the interview. Even Douglas even got the.
Yeah, Werner got a little shook there at the end of that interview. Yeah.
And he made his own rules. Endpoint, very smart guy. Douglas Feldman, very smart guy.
Mm-hmm.
And but that smartness helped him lead to making up his own rules, which meant he could go kill a couple of people. He sentenced them to death.
Yes, he even said that
in his last statement.
His last parting statement.
Right, and if you know him enough and you've read his stuff enough, you know it's like, because hey, all rules are made up. Everything is made up by humans, so therefore I can make up my own rules.
Yeah, or I could live outside of those rules. I'm not going to live within the constraints of those rules. I'm going to just
absolutely
make it up as I go along.
Right, and yeah, exactly. So I'm making up my own, and I'm living by my rules, not society's rules. And he says, even in the interview, you'll hear him say, it's just the rules of society. They're all just made up. They're all just made up, which is true. The problem with nihilism and those kind of stuff.
There is some truth to that, right?
We did make them up.
Yeah.
we did. The problem is if you stick with it all the way to the end and you have every person for themselves, it doesn't work for humankind.
No.
And so that's where talking about nihilism and be careful about what. And Nietzsche was, by the way, into this too, in the language, and being careful about the words that you use, and sort of how you hang about in the world, and what impact you're having in the world. And that's what we want to come to our next thing. Which is the intellectual dark web. We
call it the IDW.
IDW, those people really don't care what Phil and I have to say, because they're making good money. And I even said to Phil, well, if we were making that much money on a podcast, we probably wouldn't change either. So, it's a capitalistic world and all that, and they are. They're, at least a few of them are making a whole lot of money doing what they're doing, and they coined themselves this really cool thing called the intellectual dark web. And I don't know how many members of the are, like 100, but only a few of them are making really good money at it. But they don't seem to have a set of values.
Not right now.
No, and they haven't adopted any. So they haven't stood on a ground and saying, we stand on this ground. We stand for this.
So that would be, I'll put this back up. Here's what we're talking about, folks.
This is what I stand for. And there we go. He just showed the matrix, and in the lower right-hand corner of the matrix, he has put, it's actually, it's a statement, what I stand for.
Right.
This is what I stand for.
Yeah.
We are,
or even who I stand for, right? Who and what
I stand for. We are getting close to a famous phrase from the musical Hamilton. Hamilton sings to Aaron Burr, who eventually shot him and killed him. And Aaron Burr was, of course, when he was a vice president for the United States. But he said, if you don't stand for anything, what are you willing to fall for? What are you willing to die for? There's T-shirts Bill has seen.
Oh, yeah.
The phrase on it with Hamilton saying you need to stand for something. He was probably a bright guy, and what that means is if you don't have anything to stand for, other people can come along and co-opt you.
Yes. You're easy pickings.
They're easy pickings for other folks to come along and co-opt you. And that is, in part, what has happened to the intellectual dark web. They have been a bit, they might deny this, but you can see it if you study them a bit. They've been co-opted a bit by what's called the alt-right.
Yes.
And they do have something they stand for.
Right. Yeah.
And so
that's the problem. They will state their intentions too, as well.
Right. I'm not saying I agree with them, but
right.
You can figure out what their intentions are.
Right.
That's the nice thing about knowing somebody's intentions. It's like, at least you know whether to fight against their intentions or not. At least you know where they stand. You can go, well, purposefully, as best we can tell, the intellectual dark web has not. They don't have a set of values. They don't have something they stand for. And they can be co-opted. And we aren't the first ones to mention this, right, Phil?
No, we are not. That's been an ongoing critique that they seem to be beholden to their audiences, and they don't really have a coherent agenda. They talk about themselves as being, a loose group, but there's no coherency to what the message is they're trying to get across, from what I can see.
Well, and others, I've read what others have said, and it's like the danger of that, and we're not the only ones.
Yeah.
We're not that.
They're free to do whatever they want to do. But
others, but the danger of that is that you get co-opted.
Right.
Oh, they stand with us.
Yeah, and they have been co-opted.
Well, they have been. Period. End of story. They've been co-opted. What are the reasons for that? What's the big pod show guy?
Ben Shapiro, I think, is the.
No. He's the argumentative one. He's
Joe
arguments with. Who's
Rogan?
Dave?
Oh, blanking.
I am too. Oh my God. It's being horrible. Well, it's just a podcast. We can look it up. Here we go. Leaders of the intellectual dark web. I found them. There's Sam Harris. That's not him.
No.
Eric Weinstein, mathematician guy.
Right.
Dave Rubin.
Oh, Dave Rubin. Oh, okay.
He's got a ginormous podcast. And of course, I'd love if he invited me to be on it because it'd be big advertising. I mean, he's like the presidential candidate, Chang. I think it's Chang. Is that his name?
Yang.
Yang. That's it.
Andrew Yang.
I was thinking Chang, Michael Chang. Lieutenant.
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, Yang, and and it's a big forum, and it's great. He has millions upon millions of listeners. It's great. but he'll invite anybody on, and under the saying, I'll have a conversation, a decent, level-headed conversation with anyone. Great, lovely thing.
Yep.
And then he has all right people come on.
Right.
And has decent conversations with them. And then they march off, and what do they say? They say something like what Phil and I'd say. Hey, guess what? I've been on the, here it comes.
Dave Rubin show.
Dave Rubin show, right. Boom. I need say no more.
Yeah. Instant street cred.
That's instant street cred, and that's instant Dave Rubin is partially on my side. Because of the way the human mind works, folks.
Yes.
It's just, it puts him, I'm going to use a little bit of technical jargon, but it puts Dave Rubin in a frame of relation with the alt-right. And you can't undo it. Once the frame of relation gets there, you can't undo it. Now, you can at least then later on say, whoa, I had him on, but I'm not them. You know, but he doesn't do that.
No. No disclaimer there.
I've carefully looked for that. He purposely doesn't do it. He doesn't want to reduce his audience, is what I figured. But it's dangerous because you don't want the alt-right. You don't want the left. What's the left called? The left? Liberal left? I don't know.
Pretty much. Yeah.
They don't have a kitchen.
Liberal, progressive.
Right. You want them? You don't want them co-opting you either. Unless that's who you happen to stand for. But it's awful hard to be neutral when the people surrounding you don't want you to be neutral.
Yeah.
And they'll take your neutrality and muck it up and steal it. And that's what has happened with the intellectual dark web. Well, all said, I think, it is my opinion, that Nietzsche would take a look at what they're doing and listen to what they're saying. And he would go, oh yeah, they're just carrying on with the nihilistic agenda.
Yeah, this is what I was talking about way back when.
Yeah, they're doing a great job doing the nihilistic agenda. They're just helping everybody march right down to nihilism. I don't think there's any reason for us humans to be purposely going about making Nietzsche right.
Exactly.
He wasn't God. he wasn't the commander.
He himself did not want to be right.
No. He didn't want to be right.
He just want to say, oh, I hope this doesn't happen.
Right. But oh my goodness, it's happening. Really, if you, in my opinion, I don't know, it's always my opinion, but I think he's very right. But we don't have to. And I think we need to take a look at what we're doing and the words that we put out. And be careful that we're not furthering the nihilistic agenda. And that is true, because the end point of it, you're saying all things are made up by the human mind, bottom part of the matrix. Right? Boom, that is true.
And then anger shows up down there too.
Anger shows up down there. And so if you got anger, no rules, guess what you can do with that?
Anything.
You can go kill people. That's the problem with it. And that's what happens with some folks. And it can happen on grand scales too. Hey,
so it looked like that.
Exactly. Violence, right. And we're just hanging around nihilism really, really hard these days.
Yeah.
So I don't think. So here's our Phil and I's thing. And those intellectual dark web guys, they like to have like 2 hour and 3 hour. And
yeah, they like long discourse, right?
Passive discourses and stuff, and
or monologue, whatever you want to call it.
I don't have that much stuff to say.
Yeah.
I don't know, folks. I'm sorry, but and they're like, okay, how does Kevin Polk get in this? Well, how does Phil get in? Well, Phil wrote a chapter in the first book that I helped put out on the ACT Matrix.
Yep.
Helping things out. So he's got something in this. And I have another couple of books out on it. So I study human nature a lot, folks. How many tens of thousands of hours have I put into the study of it, Phil?
Oh, I would say 20, 30, something like that, or you're up there a bit.
Way over 30,000 now.
Yeah.
I study this hard, and I read philosophy hard. I look at the realists and the existentialists and the nihilists and the all stuff, and it is all made up stuff. There's no doubt about that. I'm not getting that. But then again, I come back to, well, there must be something worth living for, having rules for. What do you think, Phil?
Oh yeah. I'm with you on that. That really is the question. What am I living for?
Well, good. You want me to give it a stab at answering your
Oh
question?
yeah, please do, Kevin.
I think that you're still a human that was really adapted to live in a tribe of about 150 people.
I agree.
And there's a mound of, and here we go again. I trust scientists for the most part.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think they have some nefarious agenda
Yeah, nor do I.
of any flavor other than looking at data and trying to come up with decent explanations.
And if you want to say that keeping people alive is a nefarious agenda, okay, well, we can go that way too. But
Yes, but no, I do. So and there's lots of studies that show we're basically the 150 person tribe, folks. Let's put it that way. Well, if you're in a tribe of 150 people, you would have a purpose. You most definitely would have a purpose of taking care of the people around you, helping take care, especially of your immediate family members, but then of your extended family and tribe that went out there. You would be an integral part of the survival of that whole organism.
you'd want to keep that tribe going.
Exactly. And that way you're thinking of that tribe, that 150 people, as an organism. It's one organism.
Working together.
That is working together, and its main thing is to stay alive. Well, one, it needs food and babies, so we're going to do the stuff for getting food and water and having babies. Great. And then after that, we're going to do some other stuff. But, and we're probably going to do stuff pretty quickly that keeps the environment that we live in decent.
Ooh, now there's a word.
We're going to pee in the pool, right, Phil?
I don't like getting in a pool that has had that happen.
All right, so we have nice water hole. We're not going to send everybody over to the nice watering hole and have everybody pee in it. Like, we're going to go, yeah, that's no good.
Yep.
And we're not going to be very scientific to know that's no good. We're not going to do that stuff. And so I think that if we go back to those kinds of things, then we're in the lower right-hand part of the matrix. Once again, there we go. I stand for food, water, tribe. my immediate family members.
Keeping it simple here, folks. Keeping it simple.
Family members in my tribe. I stand for them. I'm all about them staying alive. Now and 10 years from now and 100 years from now and 1,000 years from now. Just keep rolling this thing down. We have a great responsibility to keep the human race going. And okay, well then there would most naturally occur some rules to live by.
We got to get organized here about this.
And it doesn't even require a whole lot of organization, really. It takes a minimal amount, but it takes a little bit. And we're certainly not going to go killing each other willy-nilly. That just don't make any sense.
That's not going to work for the tribe.
Right, that ain't going to work, and they're going to stop that. And if somebody's doing that, people are going to tackle them and probably kill them.
People in the tribe are going to say, whoa, stop that stuff.
Stop that.
Knock that off.
That ain't going to work. All right. So, and that's a sort of natural thing of most, well, a lot of cultures, let's say, they don't allow that. They don't let you go willy-nilly killing people. So there's going to be some rules that come out about that. But the biggie is, care for yourself, care for your immediate family members, care for your extended family members, care for your tribe. Just Be nice. Play nice in the sandbox. Uh, do nice things for other people.
Help each other out a little bit.
If you keep it that simple, uh, you're doing well.
Yeah. And that's something you can sustain over the long time.
But notice I included, I should say, Phil and I have included essentially what we'd call the biosphere.
Yeah.
That's that pool I was talking about peeing in. The biosphere, if you're not familiar with that term, it's this thin little layer of the earth that goes not just a really few inches down
yeah.
the soil, and then goes, just a very few mile or two up into the atmosphere.
Just look around, look down, and look up. That's it.
We are here. There's your biosphere right there. Well, we're peeing in that pool. Let's face it, folks, we're peeing in that pool like crazy. And then they go, well, I don't trust what the climate scientists are saying about that. Here I go again. Why in the Sam Hill would those people want to be having some nefarious agenda about climate data? I know some people, including people in the intellectual dark web, like, oh, I don't trust those folks. I do.
Yeah, me too. I'm going to trust them.
I trust them fine. And you know what? Even if we do stuff to take care of the biosphere and they turn out to be wrong, what harm was that?
Yeah.
We don't do stuff to take care of the biosphere, and people that are doubters are wrong, we're screwed big time. And Nietzsche's going to go, oh, there you go. Because that's, once again, goes back to no rules. I don't want any rules about how I pee in the pool and screw up the biosphere. It's every person for themselves. It's every nation for themselves. It's all that kind of stuff that gets in, and that's all part of nihilism. And dangerous stuff when it comes to the biosphere. So let's have some simple rules to live by.
Yep.
And be nice.
And let's keep the biosphere going. How about that?
And Phil has now drawn a big circle around the matrix, and he's got extinct up there in the upper left, because we can do shit that gets all the way to extinct. And the main thing is, one of the questions that you ask yourself is, what I am doing consistent with keeping the biosphere safe?
Right. Is it working?
I know that an asteroid might hit us and knock us all into oblivion.
We have no control over that.
We ain't got any control over that. But other than that, let's make it so that humans are alive 10,000 years, 20,000, 30,000 years from now. Let's make it so we figure out, and this is what Nietzsche was talking about, how we figure out to be the kind of race that lives inside of its biosphere and survives.
Right.
That's a cool thing to do, and that's rules to live by. And we can start to go about doing that. And now let me go back to the intellectual dark web. But Phyllis said this. You say what you say about the intellectual dark web. We'd be a little bit stuck up about it, but what the hell?
Well, I mean, they're in terms of what they're discussing.
God, what's the usefulness of it?
Well, that's the whole thing, is where is it taking us? All these conversations, how is it helping us move forward would be the question that I would be asking. All of us.
I am. We are right. So I just don't get the idea that the arguments that they're putting forth have to do with protection of the biosphere. And how do we humans survive? And how do we keep going? Some of it, I think, a lot of the stuff you'll see goes back to almost a hedonism kind of thing, which is, I want to do what I enjoy.
Yeah, seek pleasure, avoid pain.
Pleasure, but at other people's expense. I'm the main thing. Everybody else gets screwed. There's no way that's going to end up being okay for the biosphere. Because I need to do things that comport with being nice to my fellow people in my environment, and being nice to the big
the biosphere. Yeah.
Are you going to be perfect at that? Well, no. But if you keep
Absolutely
asking
not.
the question over and over and over again every day of your life,
Yeah.
you might start doing stuff that's more consistent with the helping out your fellow person and helping out the biosphere
Right.
instead of getting caught up in making more money. Which, by the way, as other folks have pointed out, just unrestricted capitalism is another form of nihilism, by the way. So once you go with the God of capitalism, the only thing that's worth anything is making money. Well, you can get yourself into a real nihilistic pickle doing that. Because why didn't? Well, which matters more, making money or the environment? Easy, making money.
Yeah.
Uh,
No brainer.
You see where it goes. It
Right.
goes to the
Yeah.
great
Well,
God.
I care about the environment, but I really need to make the money.
I need to make money. Right.
And that's that slippery slope that you
Also,
walk
it's
down.
the thing where the making of money, large sums of money, has really harmed other people. We've got lots of millions of those people being harmed right here in this country, and harmed the biosphere, uh, very much so. Been very harmful. So you can see where they think, oh, well, that nihilism and that capitalism, these two isms, are highly related. So
Yeah.
just to point that out. So be careful. And if you're thinking, well, I'm heading for this nihilistic thing where no rules apply, like, okay, it is made up, but if you think that you're a human, and as being a human, you're here to help keep other people alive,
You're a member of the herd, whether you like it or not.
whether you like it or not, and to keep us all alive for the next several thousand years.
Yep.
So start thinking about that. Those
Yeah.
are rules to live by.
Yeah.
And notice, I don't have to be of any political persuasion whatsoever to live by those rules.
Nope.
It requires,
Not required.
I don't have to be of any particular religion.
Anyone can live by that.
I don't have to be of any political party. I
Right.
don't have to be of anything to look at life that way and lead a pretty good life and come out on the end of it and be able to say, you know what, I help keep myself alive, keep other people alive, and keep the biosphere going for the rest of humanity down the road.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Why not stand for that? Rules to live by. And when you hear people having 4-hour debates about whatever.
Yeah. Well, there you go. I mean, that was the one thing we did talk about, and we talked about it, but this idea of language can lead us toward the biosphere and taking care of it. And language can also lead us where we've gotten with the whole nihilism thing.
Yeah, and that's, so far, we're not being very good stewards of language.
Yeah.
We're monkeys with language, folks.
Yep.
And I know there's some people, religious folks, that might hear me say that, get mad at me. Okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
We're monkeys.
Yeah.
Or not, I shouldn't say monkeys, probably
Yeah.
chimpanzees, ape. We're apes with language. And man, it is really, really, really a question of whether developing language is a good long-term.
Yeah. Is this tool that we've developed really going to help us get where we want to go?
Or is it just heading us toward oblivion?
Yeah. Or are we just digging a hole with ourselves here, right?
That's language, folks. Notice we're not saying any kind of particular political persuasion of language. We're just saying language. Is this language working to get us where we want to go? Is the way we're using language, whether it be Swahili or English or Swedish or whatever,
Doesn't matter.
the way we're using the language, that way, is it helping? Is it have a long-term sustainability over tens of thousands of years? It's a new experiment, folks, if you look at it in terms of evolution.
Yeah. We're the only ones doing it. If you look at nature, they're not really using language.
Yeah, and then look, it's the people that have language that are screwing up the biosphere.
Yeah.
So, give me a break. It may not be. I've written before. I read several years ago.
Yes,
Language
yes, you
may
did.
It may, I wrote it this way, language may be an evolutionary dead end.
Yeah, let that sink in for a second.
Yeah.
Ooh, okay.
There you go. Oh, you mean, right. When I say be careful with language, I mean be careful with language in that let's look at it in terms of its usefulness for humans living for several more thousands of years. It's not doing it now, folks. Not
Yeah.
with all the wars, not with all the pollution, not with all the stuff we're doing now. It's not working. That's nihilism.
Not going to be sustainable.
Right. And because part of it's because of this observer self looking back and going, oh my God, all these rules were made up by the human mind. And you go, yeah.
Yep, pretty much.
See, the religious folks said, no, 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 it was God sent down the 10 Commandments. And then there's people saying, I think that's a story. I don't think he was, I don't think that doesn't make sense. I think that's just a made up story. And whether you believe it's a made up story or not, there's plenty of people who do.
Oh, yeah.
And those people will go, well, then there's no rules. There ain't no 10 Commandments. They're just made up by humans. And then finally it gets down to the bottom. I can make up my own rules.
Yep.
And that's a dangerous place to be in if you have an AK-47.
Yep.
And that's what happens, folks. So be careful of the philosophical grounds you stand on. It is worth taking a look at what you stand for. And if nothing else, if you don't want to understand philosophy, just understand that it's really important to stand for something.
Yeah.
And so the first question of the matrix is, by the way, in the lower right-hand quadrant is, who is important to you? That's the first question. From that, what is our shared purpose?
I'm writing them down.
In that conversation, if you're having it with Phil and I, we would say, well, one of our shared purposes is taking care of the biosphere. Boom, boom, boom. No politics necessary.
Yep. So it really just looks like this, folks, if you're watching on YouTube.
On YouTube, if not, it's a matrix with a circle around it that has biosphere. Yep. In the lower right-hand quadrant, it says, who's important to you? And what's our shared purpose?
Yeah, what are we here to do together?
Here to do.
How are we going to do this thing?
Right. And that will keep you out of endless 4-hour-long conversations about.
Oh my gosh, will it ever? Just think of how much time you'll save.
And it will probably keep you out of people like Phil and I going, are you, just working on purpose to fulfill the nihilist agenda, or are you doing it by accident? Now, my thing is, I think they're doing it by accident.
Yeah, I don't think it's a purposeful thing.
I don't think they're doing it purposefully. But I do.
But they're not asking the workability question, folks. We're not asking, is it working?
All right. And the workability question, Phil and I like to get all the way back, is language working? Yeah. Not any particular words, just language in general. Is it workable? Well, we probably, I'm an optimist. I will say that. I come from this optimistic point of view. Yeah. And so was Nietzsche, by the way.
Oh, yeah.
He was optimistic. He thought we would make it through nihilism.
Yep.
About the other side of it.
He thought it might even be like a developmental level, like on the way to something else.
So, well, why don't we get there now? Yeah. Let's just call all of our nihilistic stuff so far good. Let's just say that the destruction, we're just right on the hairy edge of destroying the biosphere. Yep. Best we can do. The biosphere is necessary for human life. Yeah. Remember, go back to, I love, Carlin, George Carlin, he'd say, that people said, save the earth. He would say an expletive that started with F, the earth. He said, we're talking about humans. Save the humans.
That's really what it, right. The earth is going to do just fine.
The biosphere, we mean a biosphere that's compatible with human life.
Sustains us. Us in the biosphere.
Then we can say, well, we can look at the way we use language. Right. And make it workable for that. That's what we're asking. So we ask you to ask that.
See what happens. Notice what happens.
And notice how it works. And hopefully we'll get there quickly. So let's hope. But that's us. That's a matrix.
That's it.
our little matrix.
Yep.
And nihilism. We've talked quite a bit about that. The intellectual dark web. Folks, we think they're well-meaning people.
Yeah.
I think they're well-meaning people. I really do. I just think they're falling headlong into nihilism, and since they don't stand for anything, they're getting
Yeah.
co-opted by the alt-right.
Yep.
And them alt-right people, they just love nihilism, folks. That fits their heat.
It's their fuel.
Every person for themselves
Yeah.
Agenda just perfectly. So be careful with that. And then finally, come on, let's take a look at language and see if it's usable, workable for the long-term survival of the human race, which probably includes keeping a biosphere that is compatible with humans. So there we go, a
Yep.
podcast. Please donate.
Yes, please donate to us.
We are on Patreon. I looked that up. It is called Patreon.
Yeah, we went back and forth on that. We decided to stay with Patreon. Right?
Well, that's how the people at Patreon.
Yeah, so we're going to go with them.
We'll go with that. And if you donate to us, it helps us out a lot. So, and maybe you can spread the word, and somehow we'll get several thousands or hundreds of thousands of podcast listeners, and that'll really help. Whatever. Have a great day. Notice your language. Notice if it's helping for the biosphere.
Take it easy.
Bye-bye, folks.